Hi! A couple of weeks ago I made a video about engineering, what tweaks I would like to see, some new rewards, and concepts for new dungeons, and to be fair, the title was kinda clickbaity, but I honestly did not know what other title to use. In fact, if you don't subscribe, I'll keep using clickbaity titles until you do. Anyway, I decided to grab the rewards, polish them a little bit, and post them to Reddit for further feedback. So, how did that go? Let's discuss that now. Before I actually start, I need to establish a bit of groundwork because one of the things that became clear in that post was the fact that people didn't see the nuance in the proposition. Part of it was my fault since unlike old school RuneScape 3 doesn't seem to see a lot of these types of updates around. So before I actually get into the comments themselves, let's talk about two things: the 50-50 misconception and incremental updates. First up, we need to talk about the 50-50 misconception. What is it? Well, the 50-50 misconception is essentially people saying that people either liked engineering or they don't. And while yes, you can create two groups where one doesn't like the skill and the other does, this is too reductive, to the point of being wrong because it doesn't actually account for other types of players. While some people like engineering, it can be the case they don't like certain aspects of it, and on the same vein, some people don't like engineering but still put up with it because they like some aspects of it and don't mind training it until unlocking a certain reward or a level. Why is this important to understand? Because it's actually pretty rare for players to simply dislike the core of a concept, of a thing where just nothing can actually be done to improve that piece of content for that player. Most players first try something and then reach the conclusion that they like it or they don't like it. Understanding why that is can give us important information in identifying potential breaking points that skill might actually have, and when removed or improved will make the skill more enjoyable or at least smoother for players. What are breaking points? Good question. Breaking points are annoyances and frustrations players come across that make new content less enjoyable for that person, to the point where they just give up on the content. The breaking points will differ depending on the player, as some players will give more chances to a piece of content while others will not be so kind. Understanding this is a must if you want to improve any piece of content in the game. Usually skills tend to go from exploration to optimization. In terms of engineering, this is even more true. At the beginning, when you don't yet understand the skill, you are exploring its parts, and as time goes by and you interact with it more and more, you progress from exploration to optimization. This is a change that actually happens over time and it's not instant. Along the way, you can encounter breaking points. So, let's say that you first enter the skill, you start exploring the rooms and come across a skilling door you can't open, because you don't actually have the skilling level to open it. Okay, I mean a bit annoying, but fine, you search around or, ask people how you can pass it, and as you put effort in, you come to the realization that there is simply nothing you can do that will open that door. You have a skill whose core mechanic is to explore a dungeon that is locking you out of exploring said dungeon due to an arbitrary level requirement that is unrelated to the engineering. This can be a breaking point for certain players. However, even if it isn't, it can still contribute to the overall frustration they can feel. Let's say that on top of this, you find out that a boss simply takes too long to kill, even though the dungeon should be scaled to your level. This is yet another breaking point, and while some players might not have quit with the previous one, when you stack these two, they might quit now. Essentially, breaking points are annoyances or frustrations that can lead the player to dislike and give up on a piece of content. Players can quit due to a single breaking point, although when they don't, they can stack, leading the players to actually quit after multiple breaking points. The opposite is also true, where the more things they like, the more likely they are to stick with the skill despite the breaking points. So, taking this into account and looking at the rewards suggested, it's pretty clear that most of them are things that, at least for now, serve as band-aids for known frustrations amongst players that first try out the skill, and that was kind of the objective. There seems to be this misconception amongst a lot of commenters that these items were supposed to just make players that disliked engineering love it all of a sudden, and that was never their purpose. I don't doubt, however, that solving some of the frustrations that those players might have can actually make them reconsider giving the skill another try, as, removing or at least band-aiding some breaking points can lead players to just come back, try the skill again, and see if, at least for now, it's improved for them to the point where they now at least will do it even if they don't enjoy it. And yes, I was one of those players that hated dungeoneering. The skill simply wasn't fun to train, and it felt like I was being punished for not being maxed in every single other skill. But now that I am maxed and have all of the rewards unlocked, yeah, the skill is actually pretty fun. This is why it's important to try and address players' frustrations without being defeatist about it. Sure, we can sit here and say that, players will never like dungeoneering. Or we can actually try and address some of their frustrations to at least smoothen and polish the experience a bit, not just for those that already engage with the skill, but those that currently have issues with it. And that's another issue I actually had with players. This idea that if you like the skill, you will like every aspect of it. I already alluded to the fact that simply isn't true, as while I like the skill, for example, I still find breaking points that make me stop engaging with the skill for that day or week. So even if some of these rewards aren't going to bring players back to the skill, that shouldn't stop us from improving it for the people that already take part in it. And this lets me smoothly transition to the incremental updates. What are incremental updates? Very good question. Incremental updates is the name I gave to small updates that stack, polishing a skill and increasing the content it has to offer over time without needing a major rework or update. Let's look at probably one of my favorite examples. In old school RuneScape. I already used this example, but I'm gonna use it again. The giant seaweed and the sandstone grinder. These two actually came out separately, and they consist of a grinder in the sandstone mine in the desert that can, grind sandstone into buckets of sand, and a farmable giant seaweed that gives extra soda ash that you can actually plant the seeds and, farm the giant seaweed. That's it, that's the updates. It's something small in scope that didn't take too long to develop, but when you combine a lot of these updates over the years, not only do they actually have options for players looking to interact with a skill, they also patch up a lot of the frustrations players had, in this case especially irons, when it comes to making molten glass to train crafting. At its core, that's what incremental updates are. Small updates done to skills that over time, when put together, feel like a big update was done to polish and expand the skill. And since I'm already in this section, let me just touch on another thing before I actually get into the comments. It seems to be that, unfortunately, there is a lack of thought towards other players when talking about potential new content for the game. While these rewards can be seen as useless by players that, and excuse me, but are complete fucking tryhards when it comes to dungeoneering, we have to remember they are not the only ones that engage with the skill. Lower level players come across this skill, high level players might find different ways to engage with it. Dismissing this can lead to a problem I like to call the RuneScape 3 corpse content, where content is junky and is not used at all because all the attention devoted to it was from a mono perspective, and since that mono perspective has moved on to new content, the content serves no other function. This mono perspective in RuneScape 3 usually is related to XP. So when a new method comes around that provides more XP, the previous method just sort of dies because there is no other incentive to train it, given that the only incentive before was the XP rates, which are now outshined by the new content. A plural perspective considers multiple approaches by the players, so even when part of the appeal gets removed due to new content, players still have other ways and incentives to engage with content. So, ultimately, it's good to give players options on how to engage with content. I'm sorry for taking so long establishing the baseline, but I think these things were important to touch on beforehand for people to have a better understanding where these rewards are inserted, and why it's a good idea to be a bit more open about potential content, even if it looks like death content to you. Now, to speak a bit about the comments, I was a bit disappointed in them. The reception was fine, some people liked it, some people didn't, that's to be expected. The disappointing part, however, was the fact that almost no one really suggested anything new or suggested tweaks to my suggested rewards. That's what I was mostly looking forward to, and it just didn't really happen. There were some, don't get me wrong, there were definitely some, and those were good, but they were kinda rare. Either way, at least most of the comments did confirm some of my suspicions when it comes to how certain RuneScape 3 players see content. Not that it makes it easier or better to develop content, but at least the confirmation is there now. Anyway, let's actually finally get to the comments themselves. I think part of what engineering needs is actually just new tile sets, tiles and challenges within them. Not elite dungeons, lower level focused dungeons and rewards from them. For example, there could be a snow-themed dungeon for skillers with a hit percent mechanic, where if the meter drops to 0%, you freeze to death and can't be revived till the next floor as a sort of timer. Maybe one room as you trying to find dry wood in the snow and building a bonfire to get warm again, or maybe another as you hunting for enough fare and meat to trade for a key for the next room. Those new tiles could be added to Demonheim as part of a floor expansion to 61 to 80. I know a lot of players stop running a skill the instant they max it or get all of the rewards, but I think that makes DG so unappealing to come back to, besides this somewhat lack of reoccurring rewards or tradable rewards, is that it's not focused content. It's just all of your skills very piecemeal. That doesn't make it terribly engaging or repeatable unless you personally have nearly everything maxed or up there. Focused dungeons could also have their own token rather than generic engineering tokens, exchangeable at a 1-to-1 rate to the current token, i.e. if you're a skiller, you can run the skiller dungeon and still be able to collect whatever consumable or degrading reward is off of the main engineering shop, but you'd also have access to skiller specific rewards. Ironically, a skiller dungeon was one of the ideas I actually threw around in my video, and I agree. To simply put, these rewards are incremental updates, as I've mentioned. They are nowhere near enough to fix the engineering as a whole. Speaking of a skiller dungeon, however, I'll probably work on one just about now. I don't know when I'm gonna post it, but I'm working on one. SSS, or Shadow Silkwood, is actually bad in DG now because you want monsters to attack you so they group well. Adding a passive SSS would make DG slower. While it would make XP rates a bit slower somewhat, it's still important to give players the choice. Not everyone is trying to chase the highest XP rates per hour, some people just like to chill and do a bit of dungeoneering, and mages honestly sometimes can get pretty annoying. And looking at some comments, people did seem to enjoy the idea. In any case, you can always make it toggleable. You already outlined the problem with your last sentence. Those who absolutely refuse to enter Demonheim will still absolutely refuse to enter Demonheim. If you have a tradable sink, all you do is just create a new money maker for those who enjoy the content already. I doubt that being able to make GP while passively training dungeoneering wouldn't actually bring anyone new to the skill. Allowed Sepulchre is, in my opinion, the perfect example for this. It's far from being the best GP in the game, but the fact you can train agility while making some GP actually does attract some players. Again, it's about giving players options. Right now, if someone needs to train engineering, they are dreading it because they gain nothing from it and already dislike the skill. But if they could make some GP, yeah, sure, they still wouldn't enjoy the skill, but at least they would gain something from it. It wouldn't save the skill, sure, but deepening the pool of offers to players tends to actually be a good way to make content more enticing for them. On top of that, there is nothing wrong in allowing players that already enjoyed engineering in making some GP on top of that. Serves as an extra reward for those who enjoy doing the content. Again, there's nothing wrong with rewarding players for engaging with a piece of content. On top of that, this comment is a bit telling because it comes from the perspective that if you wanna make money, you need to do it efficiently, which is one of the main issues that RuneScape 3 has at the moment, is that everyone thinks about things on how to do them efficiently. And as a result, when it comes to new updates being released, they are all surrounding the mentality of does this create a new meta when it comes to the efficiency of it, which I just don't think it's healthy for the long term of the game. As I've mentioned, it creates the corpse problem that I've mentioned a little bit at the beginning. The potion of success is too powerful. You could use that to swiftly level up basically any skill as long as you can get Herblore up first. I would balance it out by making you unable to get experience in any skill while the potion is active. This is my fault. Since I did not actually specify in the post that it would actually only be used for skilling doors, which is actually what they were made up to band-aid. It's actually a super frustrating part of the lower level experience not being able to explore a dungeon due to a random level requirement that differs in no way to other doors. It's actually called the Potion of Success because it enhances the success chance of passing a skilling door because I changed how skilling doors worked in my video. I don't think anything you add to the engineering shop will help attract players. First, there is a disconnect between the skill and the shop, as players can get tokens from several other resources that aren't related to the skill: sinkholes, daily/treasure enter keys, elite dungeons, archaeology. Second, the opinions on Demonheim are split in 50-50 ratio. If you love to train the skill inside Demonheim, you probably won't need extra incentives to do so. And if you hate training the skill inside Demonheim, you won't bother with the proposed rewards because they all just buff the gameplay inside Demonheim. Besides from Demonheim being a door opening speedrun simulator, a concept that Simlink doesn't appeal to half the players, there is still the problem that groups aren't exist outside of double XP. Even if you do attract several players for a short time, as soon as they get the rewards they will leave, and we are back to where we started. Rewards don't serve the sole purpose of smoothing the experience for those who don't like the skill. They also help smoothen the experience for the people that do like the skill and want it to be improved and be less frustrating. I do find the group part interesting though, because I never really did engineering in groups. I mostly soloed it, and sometimes I ran some dungeons with a friend, merely for fun, never really for XP. The XP is just an extra. I think this inability to look outside of what's optimal is a major reason why so much content is just dead, as I mentioned in the beginning and in the previous comments. It's essentially this idea that, well, I mean, there's no chance someone would engage with something that is suboptimal XP, right? When in reality, yes, there is a chance. This is a sandbox MMORPG, meaning you kind of have options on how to approach things. That's kind of up to you. A lot of these suggestions are pretty useless though. No one really farms or skills in DG anymore outside of low levels, but they wouldn't have the tokens to buy said upgrades. Same with summoning. There's no real reason to go out of your way to make it because floors are so fast unless it's stupid OP. SSS is actually a bad thing to have passively, as you want mobs to aggro you for better AoE, and getting binded by mages isn't a problem anymore like it was pre-OC due to freedom and dissipation barge. Necklace bind isn't really overlooked. Blood necklace is used by almost everyone as one of their main binds. You don't need to carry runes between floors because staff gives you every elemental and diary gives you cosmic loss for gates, etc, etc. Everything else is basically a one-time thing. Rerolling your tier 99s looking for a specific one and then never touching it again once it's bound, etc. And even then you can argue time spent randomly rerolling is worthless compared to just target farming the boss while doing your floors normally. These are the types of comments that are very telling as to why RuneScape 3 has skills that barely get any updates at all. If you told an old school RuneScape player that the last proper engineering content, new content for the engineering itself, was Idimus, they would probably lose their minds. No skill in old school RuneScape would be able to go that long without getting updated. Which is why now we're having the Project Rebalance, for example, which is actually really great for the game. On top of that, I find the part about the necklace very interesting. The commenter says it isn't overlooked, but it literally is. Plenty of people have no idea the necklace slot actually exists in Demonheim. And that was the point of adding a binding slot for it, to signal to players that there are indeed necklaces within Demonheim you can have. This is an issue I notice a lot with RuneScape 3 players. I think a lot of them are incapable of thinking outside their own knowledge or experience. Like, what do you mean people don't know necklaces don't exist? If I know they do, and people in my circle also know that, that means everyone knows that. And if you don't, it's your fault for not watching 30 efficiency guides about a skill. This is obviously a deeply flawed mentality because it doesn't really account for the people that, indeed, did not know and did not want to watch guides on it. And the necklace slot is far from being the only thing with this problem. The binding system as a whole kind of has this problem. Lastly, the comment on the one-time use. I disagree with the notion that every piece of content needs to be meta. Because if that's your mentality, the game will have two types of content: meta content or death content. No in between, no options, why bother adding anything else? Bronze gear is honestly death content because iron gear exists, so why bother adding bronze gear to the game? Oh, because some players will get it and then use it for a limited amount of time and then upgrade? Yeah, there's nothing wrong with content that gets used a few times and then stops being useful. Not every piece of content needs to be useful forever. This just leads to power creep, or in RuneScape it leads to everything being a daily that showers you with XP, which is not exactly healthy for the game. And this is ignoring just the amazing content you could actually make with the Will of the Wisp. A mechanic that rerolls your items? Imagine how fun that sounds for videos. Want to make engineering less of a pain? QOL updates. Add key locked doors to the minimap with a corresponding key. Maybe add an option to highlight rooms in certain colors, i.e. people could highlight rooms in red to signal path locked because a skill requirement or something. Passive shadow seal code idea I like. 100% agree with this. As I've mentioned already, this was supposed to be part of the, incremental updates, but engineering needs a lot more work then for it to be up to today's standard of skill, and quality of life is a must for any skill, regardless of how old or new it is. These suggestions actually should be implemented because they would make the skill 100% better. Creative ideas, but two key problems. 1. The engineering is already way too easy. It has been destroyed by power creep to a degree that is significantly worse than, say, Barbarian Assault. This is the primary issue and needs to be addressed no matter what. Either force engineering to use legacy mode as originally intended and balance around that, or balancing the engineering around the OC would be a necessary first step towards bringing it into 2024, no matter what else you do with the skill. 2. Spending dev time on hours of unlockable content that people can instantly buy because they've been doing elite engines for years is a bit of a waste from an engagement perspective. I appreciate that you've gone out of your way not to suggest any new power creep into Mainscape, but paradoxically, having a new set of floors and engineering to, say, level 150 would be better suggestions to get people to actually engage with the content, due to it not being dead on arrival. As obnoxious as it might be, the new skilling of fans coming from a new dig site and only new Anachronia engagement are dev investments that were made because they require new playtime to unlock, encouraging people to return to the game for longer than 30 seconds. I disagree with the notion that engineering is too easy. If it were even slower by using Legacy or by obligating you to use Legacy, not only would people that dislike the skill not come back, you would also alienate the people that currently actually do enjoy the skill. I enjoy the skill for its speed and optimization, and to be fair, optimizing it my own way, so it's kind of more of a fucking around rather than optimizing, not necessarily because it's hard or challenging. The challenging part is optimizing it my own way. Furthermore, I see no problem spending dev time on things that at least some players will enjoy. This is why old school RuneScape is so good nowadays. Nostalgia is long gone. The reason why that game is great is the attention to detail. RuneScape 3 players could argue that the current project rebalance is a waste of dev time, but it's these details that make old school RuneScape better. Sure, you could have not wasted dev time in changing the level of the Drainer agility course, for example, seems like a useless change, and yet, for new players, it's much better because it removes a breaking point since you no longer need to go all the way to the Gnome Stronghold to start agility anymore, especially because some new players, if they are not aware of the wiki or the videos that are made about RuneScape, probably won't even know how to get there. So being able to stumble upon it in Drainer organically is much better for the new player experience. It's something minor, but in the long run will very much pay off. So much so that they did the exact same thing with Slayer, with an introductory quest for Slayer and an introductory Slayer Master, which is in Drainer Village, so players can more organically stumble upon it. Furthermore, adding more content to the skill in its current state, or at least the same content that the skill already possesses, is not gonna attract more players because you aren't changing the issues players have with the skill, you are just adding more of the same content to the pile. This is the exact same reason as to why artificially increasing XP rates doesn't magically make people enjoy a piece of content. You put in a lot of effort, but you didn't think about how dungeons are normally run. Nobody going for XP will take the time out of their day to go for any of these items. The Will of the Wisp will be a thing you use extremely rarely and then never again after. The Potion and the Familiar just will never work. The Potion allows players with 1 in every stat to do every door up to level 101 besides for combat doors. The Spell and Runes are instantly that content as it shows for them to do 0 damage, which is an absolutely wild decision. The only semi-useful thing would be the Mega Pouch, but even then most high-level players wouldn't ever need it, and the weakened spells are not good enough in any scenario to be used. The Immunity Blocker would be nice, but it makes every single boss brain dead. Sorry man, no hard feelings, this is just my take on the proposal. I did not understand what they meant as didn't think how dungeons are normally run. I'm a bit confused because a lot of these rewards are directly influenced by my experience in the dungeons, be it with lower level accounts or higher level accounts. Either way, let's actually start addressing the comment. First of all, I already addressed how not everything needs to be useful 24/7. The potion was made exactly for that purpose. I'm starting to think players have forgotten there are other players in the game that interact with the same content they do. And again, let me tell you, doing a skill where the main purpose of the skill is to explore dungeons and you just get barred from exploring dungeons due to an arbitrary level requirement that has nothing to do with the skill itself is incredibly frustrating, and this potion is a band-aid solution to that. And this is to not mention the fact that this really only even affects bonus rooms, so it's more of an optional thing for the people who want to explore the entire dungeon. Like me, for example, I like to explore the entire dungeon. Usually I don't like to leave rooms untouched, since you can just complete the optimal path with the current skills you actually have. The spell not dealing damage was simply to force RuneScape 3 players to have a bit more variety in their combat, much like how some people prefer, bringing runes to use the barricade spell, while others prefer to bring extra supplies. It was never meant to be the new meta for spells. On top of that, yet again, the spell was more meant for lower levels that wouldn't mind taking a bit of time to craft the runes, if that meant they would have a bit of an easier time with certain bosses. There was a time I was level 40 magic, trying to kill the pummeler, and it took me 10 minutes of dragging him around. It's not a fun endeavor, and I wish I had this spell back then, primarily because some of the bosses for lower level players don't actually properly scale down. Again, just because you might not use the spell, or it might not be meta, doesn't mean it's not useful or that it won't be useful. Lastly, the immunity blocker making bosses brain dead. This is a weird take. The bosses already aren't very engaging, and every time I get the Luminescent Ice Fiend, I don't think, oh great, I get to engage with its mechanic. I think, holy shit, why do I bother playing this game? And I'm a person that enjoys the skill, imagine those who don't. This also doesn't even take into account the fact that removing bosses' immunity doesn't take away their mechanics. Like, they still have their mechanics, they simply would be able to be dealt damage during their immunity phases, which in my opinion actually increases skill expression. Taking the Luminescent Ice Fiend as an example. If I'm good enough to attack and dodge at the same time, the dungeon will be faster for me. For players that don't feel comfortable doing that, they can just engage with the mechanic normally while learning how to attack and dodge slowly over time. If anything, this would actually make the bosses less brain dead, not more. Overall, this comment is really good in showcasing that the average high-level RuneScape 3 player is extremely bad at just thinking how other players might interact with content, especially when it comes to lower-level players. So much content for a bogus skill that should have been a minigame. Is it though? I mean, I made a video about sailing and I used dungeoneering as an example. Maybe you should check that out, but TLDR, no, it's not. It's actually good that it's a skill. Believe me. More pets too. We just have Frosty, Frost Dragon, Hope Nibbler from Hope Devourer, and Mini Blink from Blink. Night Spider, Spirit Garden, and any and all other bosses would be great. Also could use it as an excuse to graphic update to tweak a few of them. Bit off topic, but think more resource dungeons would also be an acceptable addition to flesh out the digit skill a little bit more. I just don't have a lot of ideas for them. This is actually outside of the scope of what I wanted to do, but I'm never opposed to new pets, even if I think that maybe RuneScape 3 has a bit too many of them. As for more resource dungeons, yes, again, to reiterate, these rewards alone aren't enough to save the skill by any means, and much more needs to be done to solve especially some of the core issues with it, since some of these rewards are at best band-aid issues to them, and at worst are things that actually make the skill better. Well, I actually got that the fucking wrong way around, but you get the point. It makes me upset and angry that these are some awesome and cool ideas and that they will never see the light of day. I literally just included this comment because I found the involuntary QA tester for Jagex kinda funny. Best update that I would want is for Irons to be able to do dunge with mains. Yeah, why isn't this a thing? Like, I get that maybe in the past they wanted to like restrict it or whatever, but in Demonheim it shouldn't matter, like, at all. I don't understand why it matters in Demonheim. I mean, technically you can get carried, quote unquote, but you can also get carried with another Iron Man anyway, especially when it comes to certain bosses in the game. So I don't understand why this isn't a thing already. But hey, at least with Group Iron Man coming out, that will change since you'll have friends. Maybe you'll have friends. Respectfully, I think these are all meh. The thing I think they could do to make more of an impact: 1. Give reward loot for actual running dungeons. 2. Make Ring of Kinship usable in ED 1, 2, 3. When upgraded, these would be best in slot. 3. Make chaotic weapons do 20% more accuracy and damage in ED 1, 2, 3. 4. Complete in dungeon loadouts so that they would have a full set. I want to use Cape, Amulet, Ring, Rune Pouch, Quiver, etc. 5. Make sinkholes less XP but repeatable for DG cards picked up during the game. At some point, DG itself should be more fun for people to actually do. I don't think you are addressing actual DG gameplay complaints. Weirdly, most of these are for Elite Dungeons, which wasn't the point of the post, as the post talked about only Demonheim things. So it's a bit weird to say that dungeoneering should be improved, and I'm not doing that, when the things listed here also wouldn't improve dungeoneering as they are for Elite Dungeons. And honestly, I'm not against improving Elite Dungeons. If they have breaking points as well, go for it, but again, not the scope of this post. No. Just no. Get the entire skill by releasing bind unlocks that completely nullify the skilling aspect of the minigame. Skilling to make armor, weapons, etc. is a pointless time waster. None of these resource gathering binds do anything but save you 15 seconds at the start of the floor. And also release a bunch of rewards that would either be game breakingly overpowered or death content on release. So next up, sailing. I actually voted for sailing and I'm quite excited, so yes, please, sailing next. Make it be the next skill after necromancy. And that's it. There were others I thought about addressing, but simply I would be repeating myself, so I'll stop for now. Hopefully you got a bit extra context as to why I made the choices I did. I don't know if addressing comments is a good way of letting people understand what I mean, but I found it a fun concept and I had stuff to clarify anyway, so I decided, why not? Hopefully that was enjoyable for you. Overall, I'm happy with the work I did and a bit disappointed in people, as again I was expecting a bit more talk about the suggestions rather than just people either dismissing them without trying to think how they could be used or tweaked, or people just saying, yeah, this is good. I find the lack of discussion surrounding that interesting, as apparently no one noticed a pretty big issue with some of the stuff I proposed, aka the potion of success. The potion isn't even good at band-aiding the issue I set it out to band-aid. If the point is to allow low-level players to have an option to actually go through doors they don't have the level to, why make tiers for it? As in, the lower level still wouldn't be able to cover the super high level doors, and by the time you can make the potion that actually allows you to cover the super high level doors, you probably don't need it anymore. So essentially, the higher tiers of the potion are kinda useless for the purpose of helping lower levels, and the lower tier simply isn't enough to cover the levels when the players won't have those levels. Funnily enough, not a single person actually pointed that out. Secondly, it's a shame no one noticed the combo suggestions, like for example the obvious one being Rune of Zamorak and Storm of Zamorak, and the pouch that carries the runes through floors. Like maybe the overall, or the overload pouch rather, the enchanter pouch, and the binding slot for the pouches. Like it's actually pretty interesting to see some people call some of these rewards useless when in reality, when combined with other suggestions, they would actually like be pretty good to use. From what I learned, I think I need to be a bit more careful with what info I give out. There were a few suggestions that didn't have all the info that they should have had, to be honest, which led some people to write them off as OP, like the Potion of Success, for example, in the comment that I mentioned, so I should probably be more careful about that. I also didn't entirely specify all of these rewards were actually within Demonheim, meaning they would actually not be available outside, which actually wasn't clear enough for some people, because some people thought that some of these rewards were to be used outside of Demonheim. So again, there are a few things that I definitely need to clean up when it comes to the information that I provide in the post. It's pretty much a constant struggle between not providing an absolute Word document, but at the same time making sure that I provide all the information necessary, and this was my first Reddit post like this, so I'm definitely gonna improve in the future. Would I say it's worth it to make these content suggestions to Reddit? In my case, 100% no. If I didn't make them for the video, I would have not made the post to begin with, and that's probably how it's gonna stay for a long time. RuneScape 3 simply doesn't seem to have the size or, quite frankly, the interest for me to spend time trying to improve the content in the game through Reddit posts. Unless I make a video about it, then post it there. I don't think I'll ever post anything exclusively to the subreddit, as my time is honestly better spent elsewhere. With that being said, again, if I do actually end up making a video about it, I actually think it's good to translate it into a post, even though I didn't actually get a bunch of comments about the suggestions themselves. I did get some, like the Skilling Dungeon one, which honestly is enough to get my ideas flowing again. Obviously, this means not just posting the link with the video I made, but rather actually like putting effort into making a presentation for a post, so people don't actually need to watch the video. And honestly, I think that was one of the issues this time around. Because I made the video, I actually didn't think about the people coming across the Reddit post that didn't watch the video, and as the post was actually lacking some important info. Anyway, with that being said, obviously, again, if I do end up making a video about it, I probably will post some of these things on Reddit, at least when it comes to content suggestions. Otherwise, I don't think it's that good to spend my time to make exclusive content for Reddit. Anyway, that's it from me. See you next time.